Russian aircraft maker Sukhoi introduced the prototype of a new fighter jet at the MAKS 2021 International Aviation and Space Salon in Zhukovsky, outside Moscow. According to the Associated Press, under the project named Checkmate, the new warplane is a single-engine, fifth-generation stealth fighter jet with a top speed of Mach 1.8 to 2, a range of 3,000 kilometers, and a payload of 7,400 kilograms. The new Russian fighter jet, which is expected to hit the skies in 2023, is already being seen as a tough competitor to the United States F-35 jets. But Russia does not only have the United States to compete with. In fact, right next door, Moscow seems to have a wannabe competitor, who thinks the new Checkmate fighter aircraft could give competition to what it calls its indigenously developed FC-31 jet. Of course, we are speaking of China here. Right after Russia unveiled the new Checkmate fighter jet, China's foreign ministry pamphlet, Global Times profoundly opined, Checkmate may also affect the export of warplanes made by China like the FC-31, though Chinese military observers say the FC-31 still holds an advantage. According to so-called experts quoted by Global Times, Checkmate will also be a direct competitor to China's medium-sized stealth fighter jet, the FC-31, on the international arms market, and Wei said that China's product has already made test flights, and is a step ahead of the Checkmate in terms of development progress. Here's where we love to burst China's bubble. Your substandard jets, dear China, are no match for the aircraft of frankly any powerful country. China's entire defense manufacturing industry is made on the foundation of theft. Most commonly, China has stolen Russian military intellectual property and furthered the interests of its own shabby defense industry. Russia knows its designs, technologies and military secrets have been stolen by China. Therefore, if China thinks it has any chance of getting hold of the new Checkmate fighter jet, it is in for a big surprise. Russia will make it a point to not sell the new fighter aircraft to China. Checkmate fighter jet has now emerged as Russia's flagship weapon, replacing the prestigious and lethal S-400 air defense systems. Even the S-400 system deliveries to China have been stalled by Russia, since the paper dragon has shown an unprecedented propensity to steal military technologies rather shamelessly. Not only will Russia not sell the newly unveiled fifth-generation fighter jet to China, but it will also ensure that technologies and designs related to it do not fall in the hands of China for it to reverse engineer. In order to give you a sense of how brazenly China steals Russian defense technology to use the same for domestic production, and then for global exportation, here's what Yevgeny Livadny, Rostec's chief of intellectual property projects, had said: "Unauthorized copying of our equipment abroad is a huge problem. There have been 500 such cases over the past 17 years. China alone has copied aircraft engines, Sukhoi planes, deck jets, air defense systems, portable air defense missiles, and analogs of the Pantsir medium-range surface-to-air systems." Rostec is Russia's state-owned defense conglomerate, and is the same company which has now developed Checkmate. Russia has more than enough prospective buyers for the new fighter jet. Countries in Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East and perhaps even Africa, not to mention those directly affected by Chinese belligerence, can all be made clients for the Checkmate fighter jet project. However, Russia will not sell to China, because Beijing simply does not have any modicum of respect for business, or rather, strategic transactions of no less than critical military equipment. China's modus operandi is simple: buy a few jets from Russia which they can reverse engineer, and make a copy of, which will then be mass-produced for its military and allies like Pakistan. During the 90s, where it purchased the elite Su-27 fighter jets and S-300 missile systems from Russia, China reverse-engineered and came up with J-11 fighter jet and HQ-9 surface-to-air missiles, which were nothing but a blatant copy of their Russian counterparts. In Central Asia, which Moscow considers its backyard, China is trying to woo former Soviet states with Belt and Road Initiative projects. It is also eyeing the Russian Far East and subsequently, the Arctic. None of this has been given a miss by Vladimir Putin, which is why there is not a chance in hell that China will be allowed to lay its dirty hands on the Checkmate fighter jet. China has built a potent military machine over the past 30 years, but is struggling to develop advanced engines that would allow its warplanes to match Western fighters in combat, foreign and Chinese industry sources said. The country's engine technology lags that of United Technologies Unit UTX.N Pratt & Whitney, General Electric GE.N and Rolls-Royce RR.L, said Douglas Berry, Senior Fellow for Military Aerospace at the International Institute for Strategic Studies in London. China's Defense Ministry, in a brief statement to Reuters, said there was a definite gap between Chinese military technology and some developed countries, adding Beijing would continue to strengthen its armed forces. Western restrictions on arms exports to China prohibit the sale of Western engines for military use, forcing China to rely on homegrown designs or engines Russia has agreed to sell. Chinese engine makers face a multitude of problems, said Michael Raska, assistant professor in the Military Transformations Program at Singapore's S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Among the issues, China's J-20 and J-31 stealth fighters cannot supercruise or fly at supersonic speeds like their closest rivals, Lockheed Martin's LMT.N F-22 and F-35 stealth planes, without using afterburners, said two industry sources who follow Beijing's military programs closely. Afterburners remove a warplane's stealthiness, a capability that allows them to escape radar detection. Even the warplane engine that experts consider to be China's best has reliability issues, said the sources, who declined to be identified because of the sensitivity of the matter. A Chinese military expert, who has knowledge of the government's defense policy, but who declined to be identified, said Chinese fighter jets could not perform as well as American warplanes because of inferior engine technology. That puts China at a disadvantage should its warplanes be pitted against U.S. jet fighters or those from security ally Japan in Asia's disputed waters, the industry sources and security experts said. Chinese warplanes are likely to come into increasing contact with U.S. fighters over the South China Sea in the years ahead after Beijing conducted its first test flights this month to one of 3 island runways it is building in the contested Spratly Archipelago, security experts said. In any conflict, China would likely rely on sheer numbers of fighters, as well as a growing arsenal of sophisticated missiles that can be launched from warships or land, they added. To be sure, China has made warplane engine development a priority in recent years, sources said. The Shanghai-based Galleon Group, which provides consulting services to the aerospace industry, estimates Beijing will spend $300 billion over the next 20 years on civil and military aircraft engine programs. Some sources said China had hired several foreign engineers and former Air Force personnel to work on engine development, although this could not be independently confirmed. The Chinese Defense Ministry declined to comment. In 20 to 30 years' time, given the amount of work they have done and the effort they are putting into it, they should have a viable military engine, said Greg Waldron, Asia managing editor at Flight Global, an industry publication. China first manufactured warplanes under license from Russia in the 1950s. Its indigenous fighter jet program kicked into full swing in the 1980s. The country's best warplane engine is the WS-10A Taihang, made by Shenyang Aero Engine Research Institute, a subsidiary of China's biggest state-owned aerospace and defense company, Aviation Industry Corporation of China, AVIC, the sources said. In development since the late 1980s, Chinese state media reports say more than 250 have been fitted to some fourth-generation J-10S and J-11S. But the engines don't produce enough thrust or power and need frequent repairs, added the sources. They are trying to improve the Taihang, but reliability is a major problem, said one source. AVIC did not respond to a request for comment, while Shenyang Aero Engine Research Institute could not be reached for comment. In October, state media said 3 engine makers owned by AVIC would merge into one firm. China will do more to integrate other engine-making firms in the coming years, said a Chinese source in the country's aerospace industry. This would help coordination across civilian and military engine research and development and production, said the source. To cover gaps for now, China has fitted Russian engines on many of its warplanes. China held talks with Russian state-owned aircraft engine manufacturer United Engine Corp on the possible joint development and production of military engines at the same time it signed a deal to buy 24 Sukhoi Su-35 fighter jets, one of Moscow's most advanced warplanes.